I only want God because of how good he is, right? Not because of how good I am. Like, it's just like a smell. Like, I'm attracted to the smell because of how good it smells, not because of how good I smell or how good of a smeller I am.
I think I see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
I want God because everything that I need is in him.
Our issue in life is not that we don't want to be good. Everyone would claim that they're a good person. So our issue is not wanting to be good or thinking we're good. Our issue is ignorance. Our issue is not seeing the darkness, being unconscious. And so it's like, Lord, help me to see these things that I'm not seeing.
You had Moses and they were all in this battle, right? And as long as Moses kept his eyes and his hands raised to God, they were winning. Well, you need somebody to hold your arms up.
Right.
We can't go through this life feeling like we have to do it alone. Yo, what's happening? This is Lorenzo.
This is Iman.
And we are Organic Lights. This is the Organic Light Show, and we are so glad to be back.
Yeah.
Sorry we missed you guys last week.
Yeah.
E-Man was gone out of town. I didn't want to necessarily do it alone.
And we played around with trying to still do it because that's how much we love this. We're like, man, we should still just try to do it, but it just didn't work out. But you know what they say? Good things come to those who wait. So there's beauty in taking a break. There's beauty in being away for a little bit so that, there's maybe a little bit more novelty. There's a refreshing, there's a new perspective. And look, I do know about Lorenzo because he always has something to offer. But I was going to say, I have so much that has happened and that I would love to share. I can't wait to get into. So yeah, it just feels good to be back, man.
Yeah. So you were going to Mantle, right?
Yes.
Yeah. How'd you feel? How'd that make you feel? What was the experience like?
So Mantle Conference, just for context, is a Christian conference in Atlanta, and it was at an arena. So you're talking 7,000 people in one space with one pointed mind of like, I want what God has for me. I want more of God. I want to worship God. I want to learn about my life and all these different things. So, I mean, it's really surreal. The atmosphere alone was fruitful, just being there, not even receiving, not saying that I didn't receive anything, but even if I didn't receive anything from the messages or from, anything else, simply being in the room, like that's how potent the environment was. And it was so phenomenal that I felt like I was witnessing history. Like I felt like this is a moment, this is a rare moment, this definitely doesn't happen every day, like to have this. I mean, you're talking a sea of people. I mean, you can't even count it yourself, all worshiping God, praying in tongues, getting breakthroughs, just on fire. And I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, I liked it when you told me when we were talking over that span of time that it was a sea of praise.
Yes.
A sea of worship.
Yeah, man. And that's an experience. Because I've been to I've been to festivals of like music festivals and stuff where there are like thousands of people in this field all dancing to this electronic, dance music or disco music, dance music, I think, EDM, and just going crazy, and like the DJ is up there, just his command of the crowd and the visual effects, and it was like, that's an experience as well of like, whoa, like this is nuts. But this, nothing can compare. While they're, at the EDM show, you're worshiping. I mean, well, it is a form of worship.
It is.
And you're having fun. It's in the name of fun and pleasure. And I think there is room to just enjoy music, but it's about how you do it. So I'm not trying to talk down on them, just absolutely, but to worship God, to be like, I don't know, it's just you're tuned in with life in a way that nothing else can tune you in. They say in his presence is the fullness of joy, right? And like God inhabits the praises of his people. So it's like that space of worship, that's where God is. And nothing else can compare to where God is and where people are in devotion to God. And so, yeah, it was just that times 7,000, just with all the people. It was, you really had to be there. It was cool.
That's dope, man. I was wishing that I was there at the time because it was something that I really wanted to be a part of and experience. But the good thing about it is, Lord willing, the next one I will be there.
Yeah,
I'm gonna try to make it my business to prepare and go for myself to experience it myself. But that's dope. That's dope.
Yeah, man. But all right, so yeah, let's start off with the highlights. We want to get into what has been the most inspiring, encouraging, or just a moment of the week or last 2 weeks because we've been gone, that just a moment that you just really loved, or what's really on your heart as far as like highlights to share.
Well, I mean, I guess if I had to choose a moment, it would probably be maybe Sunday.
Okay.
Last Sunday, I was at my softball league.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since I graduated Bible college, they've designated me to be the person to pray over the field and the players before we start playing every week, which is an absolute honor, right? For me, in my eyes. And because we do that before we even do the national anthem, everything, like it's the first thing, like we don't start until prayer happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a first. Like we normally only pray during the very first game of the season, so like the season opener, and then that's it. Well, we've now incorporated it every week.
Okay.
And I prayed over everybody, and I think we had the next to the last game, and we're in the mix of in a well-heated game. It was close. And all of a sudden, one of their center fielders just takes a knee in the outfield, and ball's rolling, and he's not even getting up to go get it or anything. And so, play dies down, and we realize that he's still on his knee. And I'm like, well, did he twist his ankle or, hurt himself at all? And all of a sudden, he falls to the ground. And his teammate is screaming he's having a heart attack.
No.
And so, we're all dial 911 and we're all rushing out to see about him. And as I get out there, because I'm walking out there, and the whole time I'm walking, I'm praying to myself, for his recovery. And because I'm not knowing if it's a heart attack or not, but I can see him still moving. And so I'm like, well, at least he's still conscious. Well, I get out there and I just start praying over him, and we start looking after him and everything. And finally, it just so happens that a couple of police officers who are trained actually play in the league with us, actually on that team. And so it's amazing how God just places people in position for His glory to be shown. Paramedics make it out there finally, and come to find out that it's really just heat exhaustion. And he was conscious, he was speaking, but once they got him in the ambulance and everything and got his family calmed down, we make it back in to the field, and they just start calling on me like, hey Renzo, like, we need you. And I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, we want you to pray. And I'm like, okay. I guess I got to kind of give you guys a little bit of backstory. One of the things that while you never know who believes, only thing you know is what you see for the most part, right? And this is like a huge family reunion every week. You know what I mean? Everybody always meets up and have a good time. I guess in parentheses, have a good time means that everybody's having drinks and, they're kind of doing their own thing and whatnot. And, nobody's harming anyone, but, it's not necessarily a Christian scenery, you know what I mean? Yeah. And for them to ask for prayer at that moment, let me know that God has been working over their lives and over, just that area, you know what I mean? And I felt not only honored to be the vessel that was being used for his glory and for his protection, but also I felt honored that, he chose me to be in position to be there in a different way than I've normally been for those that I care about. And so just reflecting on that even now, just thinking about it, it hits me in a really soft spot, because these are people that I care about. You're talking about brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles that I've been around for 20 plus years now playing this game. And just to know that they are willing to come together to realize and work the principles that God has set, that when you call on him, where 2 or 3 are gathered together, so is he. This is one of the things that you start to see, but only when you start to live your life according to his word, right? Mm-hmm. The example that you live in, regardless of how many times you mess up, as long as you're continuously trying to get it right, people will notice. Mm-hmm. And they'll start to believe just because of the example that you walk in.
Yeah.
So that was my highlight.
Yeah, that's special, man. That's special. There's definitely, along with that, I can imagine there's, how would you put this? More weight on you because of the position you're in, mm-hmm. Like I could see where there could be more attacks on
immediately.
You. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the very first week, mm-hmm. People were cutting into me, you know what I mean? The second week I felt horribly. I failed bad. I mean, flat on my face failed. Mm-hmm. Got into it with a teammate, before someone stepped in and just made me realize, like, I'm not the person that I used to be, like, and for like the first few weeks, it was attack after attack. And one of the things that God kind of put in my mind is that the devil doesn't like it when you step on his toes in his territory. This was a place where people were getting drunk and high all the time. And, like they were going past their limits, you know what I mean? And it was a lot, it would be a lot going on, and to the point where some people wouldn't even come down there anymore because it was getting out of control, Yeah. And now people are actually, they want to see the games. They want to, have a good time, but they don't want anything to get out of control. And so anytime anything is even looking like it might get out of control, people are escorting people up out of there. They just want to continue to be able to have somewhere to go on a Sunday evening to be able to enjoy, a good time, a really clean, fun, good time. Mm-hmm. And so this has now been one of the things that we've incorporated to make that happen. And the enemy doesn't like it, He really doesn't.
Yeah, man. And that's such a special place to be a servant of God, because there's so many. I mean, there's really two options. You know, you could serve God or serve, yourself and the enemy. But like, there's a lot of different positions we could be in, and to have the heart position of like, man, I just want to please the Lord. I want to grow spiritually. That is such a beautiful thing. And I don't know if I think we take it for granted because of how, like, because of our vision, because of we want to be here, right?
Yeah.
Like, we focus on what's still unclean in us, and we don't appreciate the clean parts. Because someone had told me, like, you have a good heart, or you're very kind, and stuff like that. And it took me aback. I was like, I do? Like, but of course, it's like, I'm not perfect.
We kind of overlook it.
Yeah.
We're programmed to only view the negative instead of,
right.
Paying more attention to the positive. We'll throw all the positive in the trash can to focus on the negative.
Just to focus on the negative. And it's like, we should celebrate, and not pridefully, but just like, wow, God, thank you for this clean heart. Thank you for this desire to even want to serve you. Thank you for allowing me to be in a position where I can be light, in the places that I go. And to see people come to you and to be like, hey, can you pray? Like, that's something, man. That's not small at all.
Well, also, if I can exhort you for a second, I do think that there is a place for us, a space for us to be able to be proud to serve God. I don't think that pride, if you're very prideful, if you're full of pride, meaning that, this is what you live and breathe is pride, you know what I mean? Yes, that draws a wedge between you and God and you and others and whatnot. But I do think that there is a space for us to be able to be humbly proud to serve.
I think that would be called gratitude, right?
I mean, there's a space that gratitude can be that. I mean, being grateful and just being honored to do the things in his name,
Yeah, because from my perspective, like, I only want God because of how good he is, right? Not because of how good I am. Like, it's just like a smell. Like, I'm attracted to the smell because of how good it smells, not because of how good I smell or how good of a smeller I am.
I think I see where you're going with that. I want God because everything that I need is in him.
Right.
I can do nothing of my own. I'm just a vessel. You know what I mean? Right. I'm just a temple for the worship of God. Right. And the thing is that unless I have him, or unless I can recognize, and even at times, even though you may not even be able to recognize, he loves you so much that he still gives it to you. You know what I mean?
Recognize what?
The fact that he lives in you.
Okay. All that he's doing.
Correct. I don't think, and this is, please no one take this the wrong way, but I think that God lives in everyone.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can't, by what power do we move by?
Absolutely. And so
that's something we try to hammer down here.
I think where we steer and veer off the path that we should stay on is when we get to talking about the only way that you'll ever be able to have that power or use that power is if you believe. Keep in mind that the rain falls on the just as it falls on the unjust. And so what it is it's about the awakening. And in the awakening, you realize that he's always been there. You realize that this power has always been in you. Yes. You realize that the inheritance, that you're a joint heir with Jesus Christ, that, you've also inherited all the power that he rose up with, you know what I mean? And so these are, we a lot of times try to make it seem like unless you believe, you won't be able to do X, Y, and Z. Well, keep in mind that there are people out there every day opening up gateways and portals of spiritual realms that they know nothing about, right? You know, just the same way as a believer is working hard to close these spiritual realms and fight against these unclean spirits that are being invited into the world. You know, we have to stop making it, because what that draws the narrative to is almost as if, you know, we're better than, you know, it kind of seats us higher, although we are set apart. It's a difference between being set apart and set above.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's where a lot of that religious pride comes from.
Yes.
And judgment that we have towards others. I think that is something that is life-changing, to have that revelation of, because, you know, when we talked about this, people ask like, okay, I know a lot about God, but I feel like I don't know him.
Don't know God, yeah.
And I've been on this journey of like revelation. It's like, God, help reveal yourself. And one of the things is like, there's only one power in the universe. There's no opposing power that God is fighting against. There is only the manipulation of his power used for darkness. And I'll put it this way. So just like how there is only truth, and a lie is a twisting of the truth. So a lie is not a separate thing that exists on its own. A lie requires the truth for something to be turned into what we call a lie.
I can agree with that to a certain extent. Absolutely.
And so it's the same thing. It's like, God, in the beginning there was God, you know, there was never this other creative force that is like a God that's opposing. It's like, no. It's all either you're in alignment with God or you're using the power that God gave you for darkness in ignorance.
And that's true. But then at the same time, keep in mind that even God acknowledges that there are other gods, but he is the only living God.
Yeah. And he doesn't say God's like other things that are creative and that oppose my throne. Well, it's God's as far as like other entities that are worshiped.
Correct. And keep in mind that even because this is good. This is a good conversation to have. But I don't want to get out of the context of what actually is or isn't. So there are other gods, right? I mean, he allows us to, and he even acknowledges the fact that they're idol worshipped, you know, meaning that they do nothing. They can do nothing really, you know what I mean, at all. But keep in mind that there are spirits, you know. We don't fight, you know, against flesh and blood, but of spirits, you know, principles and you know, spirits in high places and high powers. So keep in mind that the enemy, Satan, the devil, El Diablo, whatever you want to call him, he is all about being worshiped as a god, right? He wants to be God.
Yes.
And so some have made him God in their life. You know, again, this is where we had the conversation of value, you know, and how we give things value or...
And what we're doing is we're giving power to something.
Correct.
And that's why there's only one power. And if you look at how the devil operates, one of his pillars of his arsenal that he has to have an effect is deception. Why?
Correct.
Because he must manipulate you so that he can, because he doesn't have the power in and of himself to create or to change. He has to get you to use your power for his purpose.
Correct. Because he has no dominion over your life. He doesn't rule over you.
Right. Because he's not actually a God that is able to snap and create a universe and create life.
Yes.
He must manipulate life.
Right.
He must put life in bondage. And so I just think that's important because so a lot of times we can have this thought of like, man, the devil's been doing this, the devil's been doing that. The devil is a lie, and he has no power over us unless we give it to him, unbeknownst to ourselves. And so we must stand in that truth and in that confidence, and not be have that victim mentality.
That's true. I also want people to know, though, that, he is the father of lies.
Right.
The devil is a liar. But people say that there's no truth in him, and that's a lie also. Because the best lie
has a little bit of the truth.
Absolutely. You have to, he used the truth to deceive Adam and Eve.
Yeah,
so,
but it's not.
All he did was made you question the truth. Right? So it wasn't that he lied. He didn't lie. All he said was, surely he, you know what I mean?
That's tricky because it is a lie, but
it's a perversion of the truth.
Yeah, so ultimately it's a lie.
Ultimately, but it's being used with
it has
truth. It has truth in it. So, I mean, and of course we could go back and forth all day about this, but to be able to actually, you have to be able to take these thoughts again back to God, and ask for the discernment, ask for the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Ask for these, the revelation to be given to you about it. It gets a lot deeper than what we think, so shallow, about it. We actually do more reading than we do studying about this thing,
there's a lot to it. But going back to the whole idea of, because you said ask for revelation and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Going back to the idea of gratitude and being thankful that God reveals these different things to us or has drawn us to a place of humility or whatever. I think, I guess that kind of goes into my highlight, because my journey for the last few years, I've experienced the most growth I've ever have. And, I've been a believer since birth, right? I've always believed that there's a God and, in the story of Jesus and all those different things. And never a doubt in my mind, and I eventually, like throughout college and stuff, I went through a phase. But the point is, I've always had an agenda, which is to know God and to grow. And so finally, 25 years in, to be experiencing this growth, it's a stark contrast to the previous 25 years. Like, I'm like, no, this is something, like I've hit on something, because I've been trying for 25 years and I've maybe taken 3 steps or 4 steps in the faith. But man, I feel like I've been at least jogging or speed walking these last few years. And here's why. It's because of knowledge and revelation. It's because of understanding some basic things so that we can actually digest the lessons that are being shown to us. We can understand that this person cutting us off, or this person being rude to us, or this temptation is all a lesson. It's all something that's trying to be shown to us, that it could be healed and it could be put back in right standing so that we could grow in God and to keep moving. And one of the things is, one of the things I've wanted to learn about is compassion, because I've understood that anger, and this is something, as far as like why I feel like I've grown so much, is because I've been able to understand what anger is. Our issue in life is not that we don't want to be good. Everyone would claim that they're a good person, right? Like I even read stories of like robbers, people that have killed people, who are writing letters saying like, I'm a good person, I don't know why they're doing this. Like, even those people, criminals, think they're good people. And so our issue is not wanting to be good or thinking we're good. Our issue is ignorance. Our issue is not seeing the darkness, being unconscious. And so it's like, Lord, help me to see these things that I'm not seeing. And what I realize is anger doesn't come off as anger. It comes off as righteousness, right?
Self-righteousness.
Self-righteousness, yes. So when we're But in our mind, it's just righteousness. We're not like, I'm being self-righteous. No, I think this is right. I think I'm angry because they actually did something to provoke me and they shouldn't have done that. So I'm angry. But it's like, no, see, we're not seeing, because it's small things. Like I'd be in the kitchen and the way my mom put up the dishes, they don't dry, right? She puts them up like facing up and you're supposed to put them face down so the water can drop down and dry. And man, that would trigger me so much. I'm like, it's simple. Just do it like this. And if you're sensitive enough, you feel that turmoil in your chest, that anger ruminating in your being, and it's just not healthy. And it's a trigger from a trauma in childhood. But we don't have to get into all that. But basically, God had revealed to me all of these triggers. Like I'm starting to see, wow, I'm angry like all the time. And it's not even like people punching babies, I'm angry. It's like just people doing things that I think they shouldn't be doing. You know what I mean? Because anger is good if injustice is actually happening. You know what I mean? Like put that baby down, like but
oh man, this is funny.
But okay. But I think that's important because we all have so much that's in the dark part of our consciousness, in the shadow side that we just can't see. And I realized that's what happened with anger is like, it doesn't really appear to us as anger. Like, of course, if we go back, we say I was frustrated. But in the moment, it just feels like, no, this is righteousness. They shouldn't have put their pot in there like that. They shouldn't have talked to me in this tone. They shouldn't have asked me, whatever it may be. And so I'm like, okay, Lord, help me with compassion. And I finally had a breakthrough with compassion after years trying to work on it. And I'll just say this tidbit on it is I realized I was a lot more prideful than I thought. And that's another thing that was in the dark, right? Because pride, you want to control things and you think how you imagine it should happen is the best way, right? And maybe you do have a better way of doing things, but life isn't about perfection. Life is not about things happening 10 out of 10 or being 5 stars. Life is about stumbling. Life is about getting lost sometimes and finding your way. Like for us to be like, no, life's about the sun shining, perfect weather every day. It's like, no. Rain is important, right? We talk about this.
Absolutely.
So for me to be angry every time I perceive something going wrong is me to put myself above life itself. And it's like, life, you shouldn't allow this circumstance to happen. But it's like, no. So to be able to see that pride and to be able to let go of control, compassion was able to come in because now I'm like, okay, I'm not blinded by the anger. Now I can see the person and maybe I can see why they did what they did. And now I could be more of service because I'm not angry. I'm understanding, and I can be like, oh, okay, I see why you did that. Well, hey, have you thought about this? Or just letting them do what they do and trusting that they'll figure it out. But ultimately, being in the space of peace and compassion is what I've taken another step in that. So that's my highlight.
That's awesome. So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
In gaining the revelation that you were prideful, what did it look like for you to deal with the pride that you encountered?
The revelation of it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's gradual, right? Because we don't think we're prideful. I don't think, that's the thing. It's just like, we don't think it's necessarily anger. It's like righteousness. So my pride didn't show up as pride. So I guess, the revelation, for one, it's tough being honest with yourself. Oh, you know what it was? Oh my goodness. So a part of that revelation was with women, right? Like I got to the point where I was like, I'm just a man, and like that kind of clouded my movements to where I was approached some situations just way too prideful. Like, yeah, they should want me because of this, and that. And look, I'm being honest. Don't I don't want to see no stones being thrown. I can hear the judgment in your mind now, right? I can hear it. But look, so It's like, but what I thought was confidence. That's the thing. Pride showed up as confidence. I thought, no, as a man, you're supposed to be confident. You're supposed to have that swagger. You're supposed to walk down the street and take up some space. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, like there's a difference between true confidence and pride. And I was more in the pride section. And so that kind of, I don't know how that translated to control, because control is another part of it. Mm-hmm. But that's basically how I was able to see it, is because I want to control everything. And that's a fundamental human thing. Like, we want to control everything. We want to control situations, and out of fear a lot of times. And yeah, so I don't know if that really answers the question.
I mean, it helps me understand.
Yeah.
But I think that overall, now that because you said a lot that I don't think you even know that, or haven't even realized that has come into play here. Like you mentioned pride, but then going towards the end, you also mentioned control.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so, pride, control, confidence, or arrogance, or whatever you want to call it, all infused together, makes a good concoction, to end up becoming like this bomb, so to speak, right?
Stronghold.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll with the pride and the control issues, it'll breed anger, because if things don't go the way you want them to, and they start to feel like they're outside of your control, you get what I mean? It'll breed anger. And you'll start to try to force steer it back into the narrative that you've created for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I could, like, if there could be one takeaway, it would be, because the question is, like, how do you know, right? How do we reveal the darkness? How do we see what we can't see? And a part of it, or a large part of it, the tool that I've used is my emotional state. And so, like, with the women, it's like I'm dropping the ball, right? Like, if I'm as great as I am making myself to be in my mind, which I am an awesome individual, don't get me wrong, but it's like, it's the way that I puff myself up,
right,
and how I approach them, it just came off wrong, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not making the basket. So if you're not making the basket, you're shooting wrong. And so it's like, with everything, it's like, man, if I don't have peace, I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Because peace is my birthright, right? Joy is my birthright. And so that's how I knew. It's like, something's going wrong, because I am disturbed often. And I know this is not God. Mm-hmm. As far as, like, this is not his will, is for me to be always disturbed like this.
When it comes to the subject of you and women, right?
Careful.
When it comes to the subject of you and women,
yeah,
I think that it is important to, and I haven't mentioned this to you before, but it just hit me. It just surfaced in me to tell you this, and I want you to pay very close attention to it.
I got you.
Focus more on being and becoming a man that God favors, right? Mm-hmm. And in all that he's creating you to be, you'll also be created for that which you've waited on. You know what I mean? Like, if you've been praying about it, and I'm sure you've prayed at some point about it, he's not only going to create her for you, but he's going to create you for her. And so he's going to start to take different pieces that don't belong. He's going to start pruning. He's going to start peeling back layers. He's going to start revealing things to you that might not feel as good to know about yourself. Because when he starts holding up that mirror to you and showing you what you actually look like, versus the filters that you've put on that screen to try to, mask the ugliness that you've seen of yourself, then in the dealing with that, I truly believe that while in the midst of you getting all of that taken care of and aligned with God, then she'll walk right in, and you'll recognize her, but you won't necessarily be looking.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's actually the place I've gotten to as far as like, I thought I gotten to the place you're talking about, because I thought, I did heal a lot, and I learned a lot from my previous relationship, and I identified a lot of it as self-worth and a lot of it's projection. But I think it's partially the pride that blinded me to not having the full revelation, because of the level of nervousness that I still have when approaching certain, conversations with women or whatever it is. And that whole thing of like, okay, they always give that example of you run your race and they're going to run their race, and then you guys
you'll
going to
eventually meet up. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I think after that last scenario that I had, I was like, all right, I'm done. Like, I ain't crazy. Look, I'm not doing the same thing over and over and hoping for a different result. I'm not that type. I'm changing something. And so I was like, bet, I'm done, kind of looking in the same way. If something comes toward me, fine. But I'm super, super committed to myself and my walk in God now, because I truly do believe if you seek the kingdom, all else will be added unto
Absolutely.
you. Right.
I also do believe that God blesses us sometimes in the midst of our errors. We don't know it. We don't perceive it, right? We're not paying attention all the time. We're not, we don't have our head on right enough to be able to be grateful in the time that he's blessing us, because we're focusing so much on the darkness. You know what I mean? We're in the dark all the time. Perfect example. I mean, Moses, for example. Moses got his wife before he started doing the work, the righteous work of God. He was blessed with the wife, and I believe that she also played, when you get into the theology of it, she played some intricate parts in being his helpmeet, and taking care of the family and the homestead and whatnot. But these blessings that come to us in the midst of our trials, in the midst of our tribulations, in the midst of our growth or in our learning curve, right? You have to be able to pay attention to these things when they're happening, and sometimes they're meant to be realized in hindsight.
I could see that.
Because a lot of times, if you've ever done, I don't know if you've ever done this, but I've actually taken the time to, trace my life back all the way to birth.
Birth is a long way.
It's a wow. So what are you saying?
No, I'm just saying you've been here a while. Yeah,
I've been here a little bit, but 43 is not old.
Bruh.
It's definitely not old, bro.
It ain't
we're promised 120, so I'm only in my first trimester, heading into the second trimester.
With your middle-aged self.
Yeah, whatever. That'd be 60, sir, not 40 something.
You're right.
But being able to trace these things back to him, because remember, he knew you before he knitted you in your mother's womb. And so sometimes what we have to realize is that he kept us in mind throughout the course of the Bible. As he was walking down through from Genesis to Revelation, he kept Emmanuel in mind, right? And so as he was walking and he gets to Ezekiel and he's like, well, let me go back here for a little bit and let me put this in place right here, because I know when Emmanuel hits the scene, he's going to need this right here. You know what I mean? Like, God is somebody who has already orchestrated and set in place at a specific time, perfect time, these things where we're going to need this.
Yeah, so I want to be clear though. So when you're saying God blesses us in the midst of trials and stuff, originally it sounded like you're saying even if we're messing up, even if we're not really in position, sometimes he'll just give us things. Is that what you're saying?
Not just give us things, but he does bless us regardless.
Because this is in context of relationship, right?
Absolutely.
So
I mean, keep in mind that what I'm saying is that you don't have to be in a perfect place.
Okay.
You don't have to be this perfect Emmanuel before your wife comes, right? Mm-hmm. I met my wife in the midst of becoming who I am today. A lot of people that I absolutely honor and look up to in a way, they met their spouses in times where they weren't the person that's standing before us today.
Yeah, and that's encouraging because I will say, and I feel like maybe a lot of people can relate to this, is sometimes, and I think it's on both sides of the genders, is you do feel like you have to be perfect. Like, okay, because especially, this is just what I noticed going from like a young teen to an adult or a young adult. It's like as a teen, you just need a personality and decent looks or whatnot. But now as you transition into an adult, there's the money, there's the responsibility, there's the confidence, there's all these other things that women seem to look for. And it does feel like you're kind of chasing this point at which, okay, finally, now I'm here. Now I'm worthy of a relationship, which I would agree was not necessarily true. I mean, I guess, at the fundamental, at the core of this, I think you're gonna get what you have. Like you're gonna attract where you're at.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yes, you can still get someone whatever stage you're in, but they're gonna be ideally equally yoked to you. If they're the right person, they're gonna be equally yoked to where you're at.
Yeah, you just have to see, everybody wants the end result without putting in the legwork.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be married and don't want to necessarily be boyfriend and girlfriend. Everybody wants, to be a millionaire and they don't want to be a thousandaire. You know what I mean? Like you can't just go from being 1 year old to being 75 years old in a night.
Right.
You can't start here, but then
just jump.
Yeah, and if you skip that stuff, a lot of the best parts of your life will be skipped as well.
Yeah, that's the journey.
Yeah, and to have a helpmeet in the journey is probably one of the most blessed gifts from God. I truly believe that without my wife in a lot of the areas or a lot of the seasons in my life over the last 7, almost 10 years, I probably would still be lost. If not for the grace and the mercy of God and his blessings being bestowed upon me, even though I didn't deserve them.
Yeah, I can see that perspective. It's just hard to say because I feel like God would have brought something else in to help us out. But that, you're right, because we don't.
I mean, there is a blessing in the singles too. To be single is a blessing as well because you're more free to be able to do more of the work as well. Like if somebody who is evangelizing and they go out into the world and they're single, they're able to be in more parts of the world, than if they had a home and a family to look after and things of that nature.
Yeah. And so, but when you're talking about people don't want to put the work in, so I have another fun revelation that I came across, and it's with putting the work in. And I would say this is one of my biggest vices that I've had to fight throughout my life. Just a little bit of context. I was raised in a very comfortable home where everything I wanted was supplied. Every Christmas, we got everything we wanted. I spent a lot of especially, I grew up when the digital invasion happened, where the iPhone had just come out when I was a teenager. Social media was just popping off in high school for me. And then there's television and all this stuff. And so I become highly addicted to comfort and pleasure and consuming for, like, I would say a decade of my life, from like 13 to 23, or maybe over a decade. And so I got used to the process of just wanting something and getting it, instead of going through the breaking and the patience and the endurance and all these different things that's needed to realize, what God has for us and actually grow, And so now trying to work with that, trying to actually instill a good work ethic and to be able to endure and not just start and then stop something because it's getting too hard or it's no longer exciting anymore. So I don't want to do this. It's like getting past all that has been a journey, man. It's been tough. But I finally gotten to the place where I love working hard, right? And it blossomed in the gym. Like, I've been in the gym for a while, but just over this past month, I've taken it to another level where instead of going like 70%, where it's like, yeah, I'm pushing myself and it's not an easy workout. Instead of that, I'm like, nah, I need 100%. Like, I need to meet that part of myself that is bigger than my doubts. That's what I want, because my mind is saying, no, you can't do another one. And then there's another part that's like, no, but I can.
Absolutely.
I want to meet the I can part of me as much as possible, and then transfer that to every other part of my life. And what I realized is that the mind is so powerful, and we really just need to know how to use it.
That's true.
Right?
Just make sure that in this time that you're realizing how to hit a new plateau or a new level in your life, right? That you're creating a new limit, so to speak. That you don't, because we have, and I know I've run into this because I've hit a new level, or I've realized that I'm different. I've become different than what I was. I hurt people in the process because I've also tried to rush them along to be right where I am, and it all goes back to what we were talking about: control, pride, anger, because you're not moving at the speed I'm moving at. Right. You need to hurry up. Like, let's go. You better come on. You know what I mean? It's more, you're dragging them instead of them walking with you. You're literally dragging them and saying that they're walking with you. They here. Don't worry about. And they getting up. They got holes in their clothes. They trying to dust themselves off, and it's not pleasurable for them.
No, you're judging them according to you. And
right.
We can't do that.
Absolutely. And so dealing in grace is going to be one of those things where we both are going to have to make sure that we're extending that to others that are around us.
And to ourselves.
Absolutely. We definitely need to do that.
Yeah. And that's what I realized is, like, we really do treat others how we treat ourselves.
Yeah.
And my mom and I were walking one day, and she was just kind of expressing her heart and how, she wanted just some grievances and stuff. And I'm instantly like, oh, well, this is this. Because in my mind, I'm a scientist, and like, I'm a student. So every time a thought comes up, I'm like, okay, what is this thought? How do I categorize it? Why is it coming up? Okay, let me do this, and that. Okay, boom, I settled it. Because a lot of it is distortions. It's a false perspective. And so when I see these false perspectives, or from my perspective, seeing them emanating through someone else, I'm like, oh, you just need to do this. Okay, yeah, you're making yourself miserable by focusing on that. So don't do that. And it's like, but
she didn't need you to fix her.
She didn't need that, but because it's tricky, because she did want help, but people don't want help unless they're seen first. And I didn't see her. I wasn't able to tap in and empathize with just how it feels to be her in that moment. I was just focusing on, well, you need to do this, 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 and that. And so, yeah, I realized, oh, that's how I treat myself. I don't sit and just allow myself to feel things a lot of times. I rush to fix it.
Yeah.
And so having that balance and that grace.
And
right?
so we learn in the word, be quick to listen, slow to speak. You know what I mean? Or quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. And so when you're quick to listen, we actually can hear the things that aren't being said.
Yeah.
You know, versus like me, I'm very quick to speak, right? Sometimes I think a couple of steps ahead, thinking that I already know what you're going to say. And that's a gift and a curse, you know, at times. But I have started to learn the art of really just listening. And because people have dealt with me for a while now, they assume now that when I do speak, that I'm trying to fix things. You know, when in all actuality, I want to bring out of them what they've been harboring because nobody's been willing to listen to them. And so sometimes what I'll say is something that will unlock that door and allow them to be freed from that emotion that they've been holding on to. And so in that case that you're talking about when you were walking with your mom, and she was just trying to express herself and she wanted to be seen, right? She wanted to be seen in a lot of times with the position that your mom is in, with being a shepherd of many people, she doesn't have that intimate space to be vulnerable. Right. You know, although she does, but you have to keep a certain type of image in the society that we live in today. You know, we've been programmed to think because we lead, we never let them see us sweat, and all of these different cliche sayings that are lies.
Yeah, and it's also the fact that a lot of people are depending on you, so you can't be codependent in that way. To where it's like, if I'm carrying everyone, how can they carry me at the same time? So it's like you have fewer people you can confide in because everyone's confiding in you.
Yeah, but that's also a lie, though. And the reason why I say this is again,
I'm just saying that's how it is.
I mean, I'm just exposing it for what it is. You know, I'm calling a spade at this point. You had Moses and they were all in this battle, right? And as long as Moses kept his eyes and his hands raised to God, you know, they were winning. Well, you need somebody to hold your arms up.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? We can't go through this life feeling like we have to do it alone, feeling like we have to go at it alone, or some of the things that we feel like we're responsible for solely, we're really not. We have to be able to trust the vision to the others that are put, you know, they're under us or within our care. Correct. And so your workload is only as heavy as you put on yourself. Because if we're really trusting, if we really trust everybody with the workload, you know, and the vision, then it's all of our weight to bear. You know what I mean? Versus just the head person's weight to bear. You know, Jesus he didn't split the sky and come back down and start evangelizing again. He left us to do that. You get what I'm saying? And so transition into being able to delegate these things and trusting the vision to others. God entrusted the vision that he has for us to us. You know what I mean? If he stuck his hands in everything without our willingness to allow him to, then there would be no free will. Yeah. You know, there would be no it would just be him, and he wouldn't need us, which means we wouldn't even exist. You know, when you really think about it, I mean, we just have to learn how to be able to create that space for people to be vulnerable and show that, you know, they're human, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, I think that's important because then we could be more of service in that way, and that's ultimately our intention when we try to help fix things. It's like we it is innocent, like we do want to help, but it's just going about it in the wrong
Yeah,
way.
using the right tools for the wrong fight.
Yeah, yeah, and or just at the wrong time, as well. And so, yeah, I just feel like, if we could have a few different takeaways, just the importance of the mind, and knowing how to use the mind, I think is huge. On Why did that turn off? Are we still recording? Here, let me make sure.
What turned off? The camera.
Yeah.
Look like it's going in and out.
All right, yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, just the power of the mind, because I was talking to someone the other day, and I'm getting so many revelations about the mind and how, like, if I could have one more highlight, if you would allow me one more highlight, is I did a fast last week, and I had been struggling to do a full 24-hour fast for like a few months.
Really?
Yeah, like, because my goal, I do intermittent fasting. And I'm like, okay, one day a week, I'm going to do a full 24. And whether, I pick a bad day where it's like a holiday or, we're going out to eat. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll, you want to eat and fellowship, there's always all these excuses. And then, the cravings get too big, whatever it is. It's been a struggle for a few months. And so this day I'm like, I'm going to do it. And what I'm learning the difference between hunger and cravings.
Yes, there is a huge difference.
There's a huge difference. And the issue with cravings is that they appear absolute. They appear like you have to fulfill this or else you'll be miserable. And that, at least that's the voice in my mind. It's like you get a taste for some chips or some bread or whatever it may be, and it's like, is pulling on you. Because I learned through this habit book that what happens is with habits, it's called Atomic Habits. Everyone should read this. There's a 4-step process. There's a cue, then the craving, then the action, then the reward. And so anything could be a cue. You could see a video of a hot dog. You could, and it's all types of habits. Your alarm goes off. You pass the bathroom, and all these different things in our environment cues us for certain behaviors. But specifically when it comes to food, the cue could be someone says something or just a thought. Boom, now you have the cue. Then the craving comes right after that, and the craving is like, you need to go do this to fulfill this desire. And so the action follows it, and then from that you get the reward. And this is also what happens with social media, and this is why it's so addicting, is especially Instagram. The cue a lot of times is you see Instagram, or maybe you're in Instagram, and the cue is the video just ended. And the craving is, I want another hit of something, of a dopamine, of excitement. The movement is flicking your thumb up, scrolling to the next video. The reward is getting the next video. And so what the way that habits get instilled is the amount that you do it, right?
The frequency.
Is a frequency. And so you're constantly scrolling. And so that's heavy conditioning to instant gratification, and you're obeying cravings. You don't have self-control. And so that's what I learned when I'm in that state of hunger and cravings on top of that. I was able to dismiss the craving in a way that I haven't really been able to, because now I see the craving better. Now I see that, the only reason why I craved this is because there was a cue, right? And now there's just a desire to get this reward. Now that I see it better, it's so much easier, because before, the reason why cravings are so difficult to beat is because they feel like you have to do it. It feels like you will be lacking, and you will be ultimately worse off if you don't fulfill this craving.
Yeah.
But once you go past that and realize, nope, that's literally just my mind reacting to a cue. Boom, not worried about that. Bro, I was able to go through the full 24 hours, and ultimately it gave me much more control and self-control. And that fed into me like taking to the next level and working out, because I'm like, wow, I could really get past anything. And it just goes to show just our perspective, man. It's like, how do you view something, right? It's like when it comes to women, or when it comes to cleaning your room, or your identity, whatever it is, it's like something's lying to you and telling you have to have it. And that's just not true. And something's giving you a perspective. And this is the last thing I'll say. Like when it comes to cleaning your room, it could be like, it'll be a burden. It'll be boring. I'll feel lacking. It'll be uncomfortable to clean my room. So I'm not going to do it. I'm going to avoid it. Then the other side is, man, it'll be so good to be in a clean space. I'll feel good from being productive. The whole feeling and whatever it is, man, that would be good. And so in one of them, if you try to do it, it'll be a chore. It'll be hard. You'll be dragging along. The other perspective draws you through it, and it pulls on you, and it's an activity. It's exciting. And so that goes with everything. If we could just have the right perspective, the biggest thing I learned from the Habit book and from wealthy people in general is not that their human nature changed. They didn't figure out how to not have desires. They figured out how to have their desires work for them instead of against them. And I think that's the thing that we all need to learn, or would benefit from learning, is how to have our desires work for us, how to have our mind work for us instead of against us all the time, and putting us in these situations that we don't want to be in, and feeling like we're in bondage and we're trapped. And oh my goodness, the feeling of freedom, the feeling of accomplishment, the feeling of growth is just so beautiful, guys. And so I just encourage everyone, and hopefully that can be an inspiration or something for someone.
That's good. And that's also a good place to wrap this up for today.
Yeah, we went a little bit longer today. It's been 2 weeks.
Yeah, we as always, we have tons to talk about, but until next time. So we also want to take the time out to thank God for this day. Lord, we thank you. We thank you for making us a part of a new day, granting us a new mercy, a new favor. Lord, we thank you for breathing the breath of life in us today, and bringing all things together to create this moment. Whether it be the people that we've not even encountered or met yet, people that we have, or people that we will. Father, we thank you for every one of those moments that you've set for us, and you've wrote our names on. We thank you for the blessing of you yourself, because without you, we don't exist. And so we thank you for that. We thank you for your son, Jesus, who died for us and also rose by the power of the Holy Spirit with all power in his hands. We also thank you for the Holy Spirit that lives inside of us all. And so, Father, we ask that you continue to actively watch over us, keep us protected throughout each and every season and level that we encounter in our lives going forward. We thank you in advance for all that you're doing. All that you've done, all that you're doing, and all that you will do. We love you, and in Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
So thank you guys for another fun-filled and fulfilling week and episode. And as always, this is Lorenzo.
This is Emmanuel.
And we are Organic Lights, and we will see you next time. Stay lit.
Lit. I didn't like how I said that. Lit. Oh, we're just gonna cut that out. You took my phrase, so I didn't know what to. I started saying "stay lit." And
you started it.
Should we say it at the same time?
Okay, let's do it.
Stay lit. Are you ready?
I said it in spirit.
No.
Ready?
Stay lit.